season, we're on the road back to the Super Bowl. In 1981, we have the most competitive and exciting schedule ever. I'm sure that all of our fans will want to be at the Orange Bowl to see the action.
It was the experienced old guard of the 70s which guided Miami at the start of the season. But time had demanded change, and the young faces of the 80s weren't watching from the wings. They were on the field, learning their craft center stage. The Dolphins were the defending champions of the AFC Eastern Division, but the crown rested precariously. They strongly challenged some of the NFL's best, and then stumbled in the process of growing. It was a season of change, searching for the right combination, the right leadership. Once found, what evolved was both artful and awesome. A new team was taking shape this season. A shape that was unclear until it revealed itself as the shape of the future. (1980), the growing season. Miami's season began at Buffalo, which had set a record in losing to the Dolphins 20 straight times. Head coach Don Shula expected veteran quarterback Bob Greasy to keep the record intact. But there were new elements in the offensive formula. Guards Bob Kuchenberg and Ed Newman were the only returning starters on John Sandusky's redesigned line. And Buffalo had been building a defense with a killer instinct for any team's weakness. Carl Tassev's running backs had some new faces. Steve Howell was now at fullback, and while there was a glimmer of a running game, overall the Dolphin attack was firing blanks. There were 3 new faces in Bill Arnsparger's defense, with All-Pro Tim Foley the only true veteran. But Don McNeil, Glenn Blackwood, and number 48, Gerald Small, led a defensive effort of 5 interceptions to put Miami in a position to win. And it was hoped that reliever Don Strock would spark a rally. But there was no relief opening day, and the winning streak ended at 20. The fans went wild. As the Buffalo goalposts came down, the Miami warning signal went up. Who would fill the shoes of leadership in 1980? In the home opener against Cincinnati, fans weren't concerned with the question. They had come to expect answers from proven winners in the Orange Bowl. Going into the 4th quarter, Miami trailed 14-0. So the call for relief was made again, and this time Don Strock responded, finding the Dolphin all-time leading receiver Nat Moore. After a Bengal safety, Don Shula ordered an onside punt, and by the time Cincinnati had realized what happened, Jeff Allen had possession, and the Dolphins were back in the game. Strock went to work again, passing to number 82, Duriel Harris, over the middle. The loose ball took a course straight for the end zone, where Nick Giaquinto recovered for a touchdown. The Dolphins now trailed by only 2 points, and a blocked punt by Bill Barnett set the stage for kicker Uwe von Schamann to complete a miracle finish. This day, the ball had bounced Miami's way. But Don Shula needed reliable quarterbacking he could count upon, not luck. Something Shula could count upon was the consistency of punter George Roberts. In 1980, Roberts set a Dolphin record, averaging 42.6 yards on his kicks, fourth best in the NFL. Roberts' lofty kicks gave hitters like Steve Shull, Jeff Allen, Bill Barnett, Dwight Stevenson, Jeff Taves, and Cleveland Green the time they needed to make things happen on special teams, coached by Steve Crosby. Special teams ignited another Miami comeback during Week 3. Trailing Atlanta 17-3 in the fourth quarter, Don Bessalou exploded for an 87-yard kickoff return. From there, Bob Griese worked magic, but in a new role. Now he had come off the bench and masterminded touchdowns in the final minutes to tight ends Bruce Hardy and number 86, Ron Lee. Another Von Schaman field goal in the final seconds brought a 20-17 victory. Next came the New Orleans Saints, and the third player to ride the quarterback carousel was introduced. As an 8th-round draft pick, David Woodley gained popularity during the preseason. But now he was a starter, and as before, the starting call was followed by a rescue call. So Griese again was summoned to play miracle worker, and he didn't fail to breathe life into the team. Passing for 241 yards in the second half, he engineered 3 touchdown drives to overtake the Saints 21-16. This remarkable performance earned Griese his 101st victory. But more importantly, he finally resolved the vital question of leadership. The Dolphins were now 3-1, but they knew they had to win against their division opponents. With Baltimore, Griese continued to fuel the offense, gaining more than 270 passing yards by connecting with receivers like number 80, tight end Joe Rose. This took some of the heat off defense, but just when the starter's curse seemed to be lifting, Griese was hit from the side, suffering a severely strained shoulder. With Griese gone, the Colts rallied to win 30-17, and everyone wondered what could go wrong next. As the Dolphins took the field at New England, the Patriots had the look of a predator, sensing its quarry's vulnerability. Don Strock was a starter again, and the Patriot defense targeted him early. As a dazed Strock made his way to the sideline with a concussion, the Dolphins were down to their last quarterback, David Woodley. Miami suffered its first shutout in 10 years. Veteran offensive lineman Larry Little had been lost to injury, adding to the earlier loss of Griese and safety Tim Foley. But for the young, hopeful faces of 1980, the pain of watching a dream turn upside down was just as real.
You know, defensively, last year was our strong suit. Our defense kept us in the ball games all year long. The games that we won earlier during the year, they actually won the ball game for us.
In Mike Scarry's defensive line, number 73, nose tackle Bob Baumhauer, Carl Barisic, and ends Doug Betters and Vern Denherter were supported by talented linebackers such as Rusty Chambers, A.J. Jouet, Larry Gordon, Ernest Roan, and Ralph Ortega. One whose play stood out most, Pro Bowler Kim Bocamper, who understood the importance of things coming together defensively.
In defense, it's a very important trait to be able to know what the person you're playing next to is doing and where he's going to be, so you can use him for as help, or you can possibly help him out. And a certain leadership from somebody. The leadership usually would come from the linebacker, and someone's just going to have to stand up and make themselves noticed.
Cornerback Don McNeil didn't go unnoticed. Never before had a defensive back been picked first in the Miami draft, but he proved to be one of the league's best. Tom Keene's alert youngsters grabbed 5 more interceptions than the previous year. It was Dolphin defense that scored first in the Buffalo rematch of Week 7. Vern Den Herder forced a fumble, and speedster Don Besselou recovered to race 44 yards and put Miami on top. The defense, making their presence known at the expense of rookie running sensation Joe Cribbs. Meanwhile, Don Shula had kept his faith in David Woodley, and it paid off. Against the AFC's leading run defense, fullback Terry Robisky became a workhorse who churned out 84 yards. The 17-14 win kept Miami in the thick of the playoff picture, and the future suddenly seemed brighter. But as night came for the New York Jets game, the personality of the team also changed, and another division game had been lost. The aftershocks still were felt 1 week later in Oakland. Defense kept the Dolphins within a touchdown of the eventual Super Bowl champions. But when it came time to score points, the offense still found itself coming up short. Miami was now below the 500 mark for the season and had to deal with the frustration of knowing that they should be winning, but weren't.
Early on in the season, we were at a point where we were 3-1. We felt fairly good about ourselves. We'd won some games that maybe we shouldn't have won. But we were 3-1, and then we started going into divisional play, and we lost to New England, we lost to the Jets, and those are 2 teams that to us are a big rivalry. We don't like to lose to those teams, and we did. It put everybody pretty much into a deep hole, a state of depression, and we had to rally and come out of it and find what we had on our team to see what we could bring out. And I think we came in the second half and showed a little bit of what type of character we have.
The opportunity came in Anaheim, California, as Miami faced the Rams. Los Angeles had been in the Super Bowl the previous year, but nothing could have prepared them for this day. David Woodley engineered the most stunning upset in Miami's 15-year history, battering the Rams 35-14. Tony Nathan accounted for 128 yards, including 4 receptions on the opening scoring drive. Delvin Williams rushed for 151 yards, his best, a 65-yard sprint. And Dolphin fans were witnessing a team which had finally discovered what it was capable of achieving.
The identity that the 1980 football team found was in the Rams game, and I believe that in this particular game they found that they were capable of doing things offensively under the leadership and direction of David Woodley as the young quarterback. This was his ability to scramble and to make things happen, to take a busted play and turn it into a big play. It was the ability of our defensive football team to keep the other team from getting the cheap touchdowns. Our aggressive young secondary was starting to mesh together. Up until then, it was searching, trying to come up with the right combinations, trying to make a determination as to whether or not David Woodley was the quarterback that we were looking for the future. He took the opportunity and made us feel that he is the quarterback of the future. Some of the things that concerned us last year was losing football games that we felt that we had the opportunity to win against outstanding football teams. And it boils down to not being able to make the big play in the big game.
San Diego was such a game. A national television audience would be watching to see this suddenly explosive team. David Woodley would be dueling the most prolific passer in the NFL, Dan Fouts. This night, the defense showed that Ed Taylor could contain all-pro wide receiver John Jefferson. And Woodley served notice that he wasn't content to just wait for opportunities. He would use his strength and mobility to create them. Woodley passed for 241 yards, matching Dan Fouts yard for yard, as the Dolphins proved they could compete with anyone. With some 90 seconds left in the game, Miami drew even with the Chargers as Delvin Williams plunged and sent the game into overtime at 24 points each. But the momentum was not enough to carry Miami to victory. Linebacker Woodrow Lowe intercepted a Woodley pass and returned it to the Miami 12-yard line. Miami's playoff hopes now dangle from the slimmest of threads, and Ralph Benerschka cut the line. The Pittsburgh Steelers were also fighting for their playoff lives, and a week later the Dolphins again were in position to win the big game. But a goal line fumble in the final minutes officially put Miami out of the playoff picture. They had come far, but they knew where the road ended in 1980. When New England came to the Orange Bowl, they were seeking a playoff berth. Miami was neither forgiving or forgetting the humiliation of a shutout at Foxborough. Here the Patriots would not be facing the untested David Woodley, but a poised, acknowledged leader backed by a line that had finally established itself. Center Mark Dennard, tackles Eric Laxo, and John Giesler joined the veteran Kuchenberg and Newman. The new faces had gained confidence and pride in getting the job done. Like wide receiver Elmer Bailey and running back Woody Bennett, who displayed the kind of moves that break open games. Meanwhile, the defense did everything to make life miserable for the Patriot quarterback. Near the 2-minute mark, Miami trailed by a touchdown. Woodley rolled out and fired for tight end Joe Rose. The ball ricocheted, and a split second later, Nat Moore had the tying touchdown. New England still had a chance to win with a 35-yard field goal. Pro Bowler Bob Baumhauer ended the threat with a swat of his hat. Another game would be decided in overtime. On the Dolphins' first possession, Woodley let loose a bomb. 54 yards downfield, Duriel Harris out-leaped the safety man to make the catch. Uwe von Schamann had already won 2 games during the season and coolly notched his 3rd victory. Miami had booted New England out of the playoff picture and went on to finish the season at 8-8. But to put the year in perspective, you have to look beyond the 1-loss record.
Most of our personnel changes in 1980 were made with the idea of the future, not quick remedies to help us win football games immediately. The offensive line changes were all made with the idea that these young offensive linemen would be the offensive line of the future.
The future for our offense is unlimited coming up next year. Simply from the standpoint that, with David Woodley as quarterback, his mobility, as well as the strong arm, gives us a lot of flexibility. It gives the receivers and the backs a little bit more time to get open. We gained confidence in what he was doing, and eventually we started winning some big ball games. It was just like watching a baby grow, and that's what we were. Starting the year, we were a team that was trying to find ourselves. Now we know more about our football team. We know the strengths as well as the weaknesses, and all we can do is continue to build upon that for the future.
Few teams have ever gained as much on the field experience from first and second year players as the Dolphins had in 1980. They made their mistakes, but they also learned how to handle their first defeat at Buffalo and turn it around on the Bills just 6 weeks later. Burt Jones conquered Miami in October, but the rematch saw David Woodley come back with his own 3-touchdown victory march en route to being voted most valuable player by his teammates. And character was being built when a team could endure everything going wrong on a Sunday afternoon, only to make it come out right on a Monday night when the only thing on the line was pride. The Dolphins are on the road back, and what blossoms in the future will be traced to the seeds being planted in 1980, the growing season.